Alright then, so Not a Hero, the review. I do apologise for the amount of time it's taken me to get this out. I was planning on recording a video with all the bonus levels and the extra content. Unfortunately, there's only so many times you can hear me go ratshit, batshit, lizard piss, fuck, before you realise that it's not necessarily me having fun, it's more me just trying to beat the game to death with a stick, made of my own inability to complete it. So I'm just going to put the footage up here so you can see what the general idea was with them, and then we can just talk about the game through this. So, beginning just straight off the bat, the reason I actually picked this game up was because I saw it was coming through Devolver Digital, and obviously these are the guys behind Hotline Miami, and through a couple of other games as well. They seem to have this good niche of not necessarily provocative, but just slightly off-center game design creation. So you have something which maybe has a formula that you're familiar with, but it's just approaching it in a slightly different way, or it's coming at it with a new attitude. So on that regard, I saw, especially if you've seen the trailer, I actually put a link to it. I thought it was quite amusing. It's got that kind of classic "coming soon" in a ludicrous British accent kind of humour to it, and I can get behind that. It's a little bit cheesy, but at the same time, it's entertaining, and I'll go with it. So yes, in terms of tone, that's mostly what drew me directly into Not a Hero. It slidey, runny, gunny, shooty. I thought, as long as it's funny, I probably won't mind too much. But I went to the game, and funnily enough, I actually found what I would genuinely prefer to Hotline Miami 2, which is weird. And just taking time to think about it, I realised, yeah, this game actually shares a lot of similarities with Hotline Miami 2, but actually does some good things with it rather than just being kind of a rip-off. Kind of bear with me on this. It's kind of straight off the bat, visuals and sound-wise, they're both going for that same kind of very vivid, very intense and gory, but in a kind of low-res, your mind's filling in the blanks kind of way, which I really enjoyed. Because I do like low pixel stuff from it isn't a big detraction from what's going on in the game sort of way. I mean, I've played games where graphics are gorgeous and I go, oh, fabulous, yes, I'll have one of those. But it won't detract from the fact that it won't distract me from the fact that if the gameplay isn't good, I'm still not going to enjoy the game. When a game comes out and it doesn't have particularly high performance graphics, it's not a guarantee, but it's normally a good indicator that more effort has gone into actually constructing the gameplay and kind of thinking about the actual design of it rather than just the visual aesthetics. So on that regard, I think it hit all the points it needed to. They actually convey a lot through just a few different color swaps, a few different kind of tweaks here and there. They actually managed to give fairly low polygon, or kind of low res characters a lot of character and a lot of like interesting fluid motion. So when Mike reloads his shotgun, he does the flip with the knife. You've got, oh damn it, I'm terrible with remembering people's names, but like stuff like Ronald Justice and Kimmy, who have their special swipe attacks and stuff like that. It feels fluid, but it also feels really nice and dynamic. It's not just like stock animation, even though it kind of is. So yeah, it took all those low res assets and it just made them fluid and enjoyable to watch, which is really good. And in terms of level design, it was fairly good. I think maybe the first few levels were a bit just get the player invested, get the player up to speed on how to control the characters and everything like that. And then from about the end of the first third onwards, you start seeing a bit more ingenuity and kind of weird and messing around with it. It is kind of like, and I have heard this comparison before, it feels a bit like the British approach to Broforce, in that kind of high-octane action, running through kind of slightly labyrinthine levels, but instead of smashing the scenery apart as you did in Broforce, this is more about being a kind of... It's more Equilibrium style gunfighting, really, where you're sliding, you're executing, you're shooting, you're making use of special abilities and special upgrades, rather than just brute forcing your way through absolutely everything. Speaking about level design, it took me a moment before I kind of realised that this game actually has an amazingly good approach to difficulty curve, in that it is simple, fairly much, to complete. It is difficult to master. And in some games it can be that it's hard to complete. There gets a certain point where you just have to be good at the game. With Not a Hero, you don't necessarily have to be brilliant in order to finish the game, but in order to perform well and to get the best ending, you do need to have skill, and you do need to be able to work out the best routes to get through a level. And That's brilliant. That is exactly what I'd like to see in this kind of game. This is kind of the issue I had with Hotline Miami, is that you just had to know the right route to go through the level. There wasn't necessarily a well, with some levels maybe you could get away with doing it slow and steady, and I think on a few levels I did just kind of cheese my way through it as quite carefully as possible. But near the end of the game, you just had to know how to get through the level. There was no deviation or other route really, which kind of fucked me off, to be perfectly honest. I don't like a game which is supposed to give me a sense of open kind of sandbox area to fight in. This feeling that, no, you go here, then you go there, then you go there, otherwise you die. It just sucks all the fun out of it for me. And that's kind of why I got a little bit frustrated when later on I was trying to complete all the objectives and get the best rating. You had to go through it in a very particular way, but at least it gives you the option not to. To go, I just want to see what happens, what all the levels are, and then I can come back later and try them at my own enjoyment. So yeah, the level of select was fantastic for that as well. Beyond that, there's not a huge amount I can really say about Not Hero, because despite me really enjoying it, it was still a very shallow experience. It didn't have any kind of level editor, which I thought would have been a massive asset to the game. Things like Gunpoint really benefited from that. I don't know if does Hotline Miami 2 have their level editor? Yeah, oh, I don't. Honestly, at this point, I'm thinking about it and going, I don't really give a shit. I don't really want to go back and play it. So, bleh. Oh well. As Broforce had a level editor as well, but I just found the community was just loaded with rubbish, with the sporadic, occasional, genuinely good one hidden in there somewhere. So, maybe it's not necessarily something which every game should aspire to, but this Not a Hero felt like a game which could have benefited from it. So, but oh well. Extra things to talk about, really. The soundtrack I really enjoyed. I actually scrounged around and actually got the soundtrack version of it as well, so I've got that. And I really do like that it's going for that. It's going for kind of keeping the tempo up, but also showing a lot of variety in the soundtrack as well. And the sound design in particular, this is, alright, fair enough, I won't drop any names here, but I do actually, I'm passing acquaintance with the guy who did the sound recording for this, and he did mention he was working with someone who was doing all kinds of bizarre voices, so that might explain all the crazy voices we were hearing in the game. So that's fair enough. And yeah, again, putting characterization and putting life into the characters, the voice acting really, really helped, because it made it feel a little bit more like they actually had personalities which suited their skill sets, rather than simply being, this was the fast one, this one's the hard one, this one's the crazy one. It was a bit more organic. And also just the fact that when you went back to previous levels with unlocked characters, they still had extra lines of dialogue. That was really nice. Showed kind of that the developers were intending for people to go back, play with different characters, use different styles to complete things, find the best character to perfect the level with. That was all really nice. Yeah, beyond that, there's not much more I can really talk about. That's the thing, that Not a Hero, it's not a game that you're going to come back again and again and again to replay. Once I've pretty much hit the point where I've done fairly well in the game. I don't think I'm going to be that rewarded by going back and completely 100%ing it, so I may not bother. But for the money I put into it and the amount of enjoyment I got out of it and the challenge it gave me as well, I can't really fault it. If you do see this cheap on Steam for I think I'm picking up, I can't remember how much I picked mine up for. I think it was a little bit less than it was before. But anyway, yeah, if you do see it on special offer on Steam, I would say definitely pick it up. And if you do like the sound of the soundtrack, if you've listened to any of the music in the videos previously, that's come from the soundtrack. So yeah, if you do like what you're hearing there, definitely pick up the special edition, because you get loads of extra stuff there as well, and that includes the full soundtrack to the game, which is baller as absolute fuck. But yes, anyway, I shall leave it there, and I shall thank you very much for putting up with this, well, completely batshit amazeballs disgusting, etc., etc. game, and my absolutely batshit amazeballs stupid commentary to go along with it. Thank you very much for watching and putting up with me, and goodbye.